Hello and welcome again to Tommy's Travers' predictions on the three rugby matches on the weekend. And I have to welcome John White with me again. He's a Welshman. John is well up in rugby, so he does this with me. In the last couple of weeks, we're after doing it. So we're going to start off anyway today with the first match, John, is Italy against Scotland. So what is your prediction there, please, on that one, or what do you think of it?
Well, I think so. This match is on. This is the second one of the weekend. This is on Saturday. This is the first
Early,
match on
yeah.
Saturday. Yep.
Yeah.
So I think this is the best chance Italy have had so far this tournament to actually get a win. I think the worst three teams in the tournament are Italy, Scotland, and Wales. So that's who Italy have left to play. So yeah, it's in Rome. So they have a reasonable chance. Scotland haven't looked great. They're missing Duhan van der Merwe. He got a red card playing for his club last week, so he's banned. Which I have the teams here somewhere. Who have they put on the wing instead of him? They have Kyle Steyn on the wing instead. So definitely a big drop off from van der Merwe. So and Italy, for what it's worth, are starting two wingers rather than a centre on the wing, which they have been doing for a little while. They brought Pierre Bruno in. So, Italy have a reasonable chance. I think they'll definitely look the best they have so far this Six Nations. Whether they'll actually win or not, you kind of have to be it would be too optimistic to say they'll beat Scotland. But I would say this match and then their match against Wales the following week, they are their best chances to win, but I would still expect Scotland to win by more than 7 points.
Yeah. Well, yeah, on that one now, John, I'm going to it'd be nice if Italy won. Like, I would like to see them coming up and getting a bit better in this, but I just don't think they can beat Scotland this time, even though it's at home and all. That will be a help to them, but I just think I think Scotland will win it. I'm just going to go and chance Scotland anyway. In that one.
Yeah, I mean Scotland haven't looked as good as they have in previous years. They definitely haven't looked as good since they played England. But yeah, I still expect them to win.
Yeah, I think because you know yourself, John, when it comes down to it, Scotland, now I know Italy is going to be trying like hell to win it as well, but I just think Scotland in pick them, them just that bit better and just win it, Yeah. So that's that match, John. We're going to go now to the Friday night match, John. Wales, your team against France. And I'm hoping, John, for a Welsh win here because hopefully that Ireland will win their game and it can open up the championship a bit. Because if Wales lose now to France, do you know what I mean? Now I know it's a very, very hard match for Wales, but Wales are in at home and they're going to give it everything. Now I know France are as well in all these matches, but I'm just going to chance Wales in that match, John. What do you think?
I think they have a reasonable chance of winning, and the Principality Stadium, formerly Millennium, definitely. I think it probably gives you at least a 7-point advantage. You're definitely running out on the pitch 7 points up. But the thing is, there are certain things that make the French team really, really solid and really effective, and it has very few weaknesses. But one strength that Wales have against it is that the French defensive coach, Sean Edwards, worked with them for 10 years. There are players there and there are coaches there in that team that know what worked against them when they were using the same defensive structure. And generally what that is a lot of kicking. you generally in that defensive structure would have quite a big gap between your line and your fullback and your potentially wingers covering kicks in the backfield. So where that game plan is particularly weak is little chips over the top, little grubber kicks through, anything which makes a blitzing defender have to turn. So expect to see a lot of that in that match. Probably not so much kicking to touch for territory. Wales like to keep the ball on the park, partly because their line out is not great. And yeah, expect to see.
Most of the teams do that now, John, don't they?
Not all of them do.
Sorry for the
No, you're grand. It's a tactic. So, for example, Wales under Warren Gatland did it a lot. They used to keep the ball on the park because they backed their fitness a lot of the time. And when you've got a lot of kicking going back and forth, especially in an international match where the players are expected to chase everything, like those kicking battles back and forth can really tire out forwards in particular, because they're just running back and forth constantly. So that it was a tactic for a long time because they backed their fitness, and even though they knew that their lineouts weren't great, they would keep it on the field, and they would still just try and, like I said, like a couple of weeks ago when we were talking, they'd be maneuvering the back line and trying to find space to get in behind. So there's that aspect of it as well. But this season, teams are kicking a lot less to touch in general and kicking out of hand. France are kicking a lot less out of hand. England as well, because they don't seem to want to get in such a kicking battle, because even though they've got two fullbacks in their back three, they haven't performed particularly well aerially. But that's probably not down to their individual players. That's probably down to the system they're putting in. So yeah, expect to see from Wales a lot of little kicks over the top, which they're going to be sending probably Alex Cuthbert and Owen Watkin into to try and regather in the midfield. So that'll be happening a fair bit, I would say. And they've also, Wales notably have brought in Josh Navidi in at 7. He's come straight back in after a pretty poor performance, pretty poor team performance. Cardiff went down to Ulster on the weekend. I can't remember how many tries Ulster scored, but it was cricket score. He's come straight back into the team because he secures the breakdown, which is what Wales have been lacking the entire time. And with him there to secure quick ruck ball, and Thomas Williams playing 9, who likes to run a very fast ruck, you could potentially see the attack kick into gears like it did towards the end of the England game. From France's point of view, there was a brief moment where we thought that captain and talisman, it's a bit of an annoying word for me to throw out there, but yeah. So, but there really is, because when he plays to his best, they win. Antoine Dupont, they thought he wasn't going to play due to, I think it was an elbow injury, but they strapped him up and he's come through and he's expected he will be starting. And I think I'll just have a quick look at it now, but I'm pretty sure that team is quite, apart from the front row, it's relatively unchanged. Although I can't remember if Francois Crowe played in the last round. So yeah, we've got Villiers on one wing, Mofana is on the other, Fiku and Dante in the centres, Jaminet at fullback. So it's still going to be an incredibly interesting attacking backline. That backline is better than the Welsh one. There is no doubt about that.
But they've always good backline, John.
They're always really solid. So just to bring it down, I would expect them to. I expect that whoever wins, like, there's going to be a losing bonus point there. I think it's going to be a close game.
Right. I just want to say, John, that going back now, I don't know how long ago it'll be, but at one stage, as far as I can remember, now it'll be going way back, they didn't do this actual kicking from fullback to fullback at all at one stage. They used to always kick for touch. Now this is going, I don't know when it'll be going back to, Because like I'm looking at rugby since the 70s, 60s, So I don't know, but I think now, as far as I can remember, I could be wrong, but I think at that stage they used to be kicking per touch. They weren't doing it the way, you're after explaining it to me there now. Now I know they have been doing that for a good few years, and you were explaining to me there now they're trying to tire out other players and catch them out with a sort of a cross-field ball and all that. But it's all tactics, John, isn't it? This is what the whole game is about.
Yeah, well, it's all tactics, and then also you've got the other side that it was a cardinal sin back in the day to give away possession, because how do you score points without having the ball? There's been a massive, especially since the sort of turn of the millennium, there's been a massive revolution in how defense works in rugby, and if you go back and watch some of the amazing games from the 70s, how many times do you see people put in incredible defensive displays? It's not that common.
Yeah.
And really, the change in the role of the back row in particular and how they work defensively has been huge. You can't really understate it. And so teams are willing to give away possession and say our defense is good enough that they won't get through. And in fact, certain teams, like say, I know I've been bringing up a while, but Warren Gatland's Wales or Sean Edwards' teams, they're quite happy to give away possession. Not so much France this season, but previous seasons they would kick the ball away a lot. And the reason for that is that they feel that their discipline is better than the other team. And they think that if they defend solidly and get quite annoying around the ruck, that the other team is going to give away penalties. And that's going to be a chance for either Jaminet or Intermac to kick 3 points, or it's going to be kick it downfield, maul over a try. So it's not necessarily
the game now.
Yeah, it's huge, especially kick. I mean, it's a big thing in all Irish teams as well, except maybe not so big with Connacht. The teams just back their defence more. Like a few years ago, especially under Joe Schmidt, I think Ireland was, or at the start of the Joe Schmidt era, Ireland would quite regularly have less than 45% of the possession of the game, because they were very happy to just take their opportunities off penalties and kick downfield. It's 100% a tactic, and it's very, very effective if you have a good defence.
The other thing, John, I just was speaking to you the other day about it, and I think it never happens now, and that's strike against the head. Do you know, when they're putting the ball, say it's a Welsh scrum and Wales are playing Ireland, Wales always win their own scrum, Ireland always wins their own scrum, and every team, as far as I know now, wins their own scrum. Now, one time when I used to be looking at it, every now and again in a match, there'd be a strike against the head, which means that Ireland puts it in, and just say for argument's sake, they're playing Wales, Wales would win it. Now, that never seems to happen now. Do you know? Remember, I was just saying that the other night. Now, you were explaining to me, and I couldn't fully understand it. Now, I know we're a bit tight for time, John, so you can give a quick answer if you want to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, the quick answer is that hookers don't hook anymore. And what that means is that over time, it's become more accepted that the scrum half doesn't have to feed the ball into the centre, that they can roll, they can feed it wider and wider and wider. So oftentimes it's pretty much going to the second rows to get the ball back. Now, you can argue whether or not that is or is not a problem in the game. Teams still win against the head. It's just not done the way you would expect. It's done by earning penalties at the scrum. It's done by overpowering the other team, wheeling the scrum.
I was going to say that.
Wheeling, forcing players to move their binds. There's a lot of different ways you can earn penalties in the scrum. And it's a different, a lot of people don't like it. I quite like it, but I think I'm in the minority there. It's just one of those things.
Depends on the referee
it's
as well,
unlikely to
John,
change.
doesn't it?
What, sorry?
It depends on the referee as well. His interpretation of the game is like everything in soccer, Gaelic. You know, it's all down to the referee. One referee in penalising something and another referee then won't. So you just have to sort of suss out the referee, both teams, don't they?
Well,
Try
you
and
do.
get the advantage as well.
You do. It really, you want to kind of look for, I mean, all teams are doing research on referees these days, and they're seeing how often does this referee give away, or how does this referee interpret wheeling, or is this referee more generous to loose heads or tight heads? And you know, it's very difficult. But yeah, I mean, that's the reason. That's the reason you don't see the ball being won from within the scrum by the opposing team anymore.
And you can't really see what's going on, John, really.
No.
No, we can't, you know. So in that game anyway, John, I'm going to chance Wales in that match. So what are you saying there, John? And then we move on to the Ireland match. Because
I can honestly say I can honestly see ways that I can see ways for Wales to win that game, but I can also see them very easily imploding. But they have a very good record against France. They didn't beat them last year, but they've had their number. It's a really difficult one. I think I'd say France by 3. As much as I wish I hope I improved from.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So we're going to move on now, John, to the last match, and for me, this is the most important match, naturally, you know, and it's England against Ireland. And as I was saying to you before we went on air there, that we were talking about how Ireland are favourites. And I'm always a bit nervous when they're favourites. I don't like going into a match as favourites, you know. And a lot of people are sort of writing England off altogether. And I think that's very dangerous, because it's a great way for the English manager to go into the dressing room to hype the team up. Now, I know hyping the team up is not going to win the match for you either. You still have to go out and win it. But I just... You know, I am a bit worried about it. Now, I do think Ireland will win it. I'm going to go for Ireland in that match. What is your position on that match, John, please?
I am a bit of the opinion that this is probably the easiest one to predict of the weekend. I maybe it's just a bit, but I think the Ireland are going to win very handily. I know everyone's saying like, oh, you be careful about this, be careful about that, and that's fair enough. Because you don't want to overhype your own team too much. You know, you're hearing people in the Irish media being very conservative with how they feel. That's
what I'm worried about, John.
But everyone in the media that I've been listening to, everyone in the media who I would, you know, I think they know they have a good handle on what they're talking about. They're all those people are saying that they're being quite conservative. They're saying, yes, I think we'll win, but you know, I honestly think I don't think England score a try in this match, if I'm honest. I think their attack has been woeful. The only reason they scored against Wales in the last round was because of a very well documented sort of like I mean it's just worth pointing out that I think everyone's
sure he's not. Farrell is not playing, I don't think. Sure he's not.
No, I don't think he's even on the bench actually. I think he's they've got Ben Youngs and George Ford on the bench and Elliot Daly in the backs. So no. What I was going to say is like so one of the things that's been happening this Six Nations fair amount is that the lineouts have the encroachment of the lineouts has been really interesting. They've been shortening the gap a lot. England have been doing it very effectively, and it was to the point that they off that Wales lineout where they essentially stopped. They bumped the man from jumping, which is a straight penalty, but they got away with it, which is grand. Like, and that turned into a no. It is grand.
Yeah.
There's a very fine line between cheating and genius in rugby, and you've
Oh,
got to
that's
respect it,
it.
and you've got to respect it, you know.
Yeah.
So so through genius, they were able to nab a try from there, and like it's not I just don't see Ireland giving that sort of thing away from them. And it's really interesting because I think that's why Peter O'Mahony is starting for Ireland. I don't know if you saw the team before we came on, but Peter O'Mahony's had a really good role off the bench in recent weeks. And
Yeah.
like, but no, he's starting because you cannot, like, when we talk about cheating versus genius, there's no one more genius than Peter O'Mahony. Like he will push people's buttons, and especially Maro Itoje's, who is also very good at being a genius. And like it's he is there purely to counter the messing around that's been going on around these things. And
He's,
I that's my opinion of it.
he's a
But yeah,
massive. One day, John, I went over to see Ireland training in Carton House there. And actually, I was walking, I parked, and I was walking up. I had to walk up a bit up to where they were training. And actually, it was the first day I went to see them train now in a good while. That's a couple of years ago. And actually, Peter O'Mahony, he was walking in. He was coming in early, however it was. I don't know whether he got a knock or what, but he was just walking in. I just said to him the best hello.